Hey, what's up? It's Logan. I'm the video producer here at Ikelite, and I just got back from an incredible 2-week trip to Raja Ampat, Indonesia, diving aboard the Velocean liveaboard. And there's so much incredible marine wildlife and coral out there that today I just wanted to run through some of the camera gear that I brought with me. So if you're interested in going on a trip similar to this, or just like talking gear, then this will be the video for you. Alright, so starting off with the camera bodies, my main camera for shooting underwater was the Sony A1 Mark II. Now, I've been shooting on this camera for a few months now since it came out, and this thing is a beast, and I knew I wanted to bring it on this trip. It's got great photo, of course, as well as great video. So I was able to switch back and forth, either on the same dive, or just do one dive that was strictly video, or one dive that was strictly stills, and keep the same camera in the housing. One of the main reasons why I like shooting on Sony cameras, whether it's the A1 or any of the other ones, is how customizable they are. And this latest A1 Mark II is even more customizable with some new dials and as well as new settings that you can map to the back buttons, which is really important when you're shooting underwater. So the Sony A1 II was my main camera and it didn't let me down. And then my backup camera, as well as just kind of like my top side, second body, was the Sony A7C II. This thing is super small, fits in my carry-on, while still being a full-frame camera that shoots great photos and really good video. So the A7C II was my backup, and it usually is on these trips. It's just so easy to pack. All right, and then moving on to the camera housing, this is the Ikelite 200DL underwater housing for the Sony A1 Mark II. Now, the biggest thing that stood out to me about this housing during this trip specifically was making sure that I had the USB-C bulkhead installed on it. And that's because the A1 Mark II's battery life it's okay, it could be better, and I like making sure that I have as much battery life as I can before every single dive. So it was really easy to finish my dive and then go back to my camera station and plug in my housing without having to take the camera out. And by the time the next dive came around, I was pretty much at full battery. Now, while I did love shooting the A1 Mark II, I don't think that the camera body is as important as the lenses that you choose to bring with you. So let's break down the lenses that I brought on this trip. So first up, we have the trusty Sony 16-35 f4 PZ. This thing always goes in my bag for wide angle shots, and I like the PZ version specifically because of how small it is and because I can customize the buttons on the back of my camera so that I can zoom this thing internally, meaning I don't need to bring a zoom gear. And that's one less piece of gear that I need to worry about when packing. Then next up, we have the Sigma 24-70 f2.8 lens, and this is just a great all-around focal range, and I'll throw this on anytime that I wasn't quite sure what would show up on the dive. To be honest, this lived on my camera for most of the trip. And then finally, I brought the Sony 90mm macro for macro shooting. This thing is really sharp, and I run it in autofocus most of the time, so I ended up just not even bringing the manual focus gear and keeping it in autofocus, and then programming some buttons on the back of my camera so that I could switch between manual focus and autofocus when I needed to. And then the only zoom gear that I needed for all three of these lenses was just this one for the Sigma 24-70, because the rest of them zoomed internally and doesn't need a zoom gear or manual focus because I use autofocus. So I was really happy that I only had to bring one, and I honestly just kept this inside the housing the entire time because both of these are small enough to just fit through without touching. And then for extensions, I only needed 3 extensions for all 3 of these lenses, and 2 of them actually just live together the entire time because they accommodate both of these lenses. And then any time that I wanted to use the 16-35, I just had to swap this out. So that worked out really well. I have a longer video that goes more into depth about why I choose these 3 lenses for most of the trips I go on. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I'll link the video on the screen now. Cool. And then from there, I had the full-size 8-inch dome port for the 24-70 and the 16-35, as well as the macro flat port for the 90mm. And again, these just interchanged on the same extensions for both of these lenses. And then anytime that I wanted this, I just had to switch out the one extension and then use the full-size 8-inch dome port. All right, so moving on to lighting, I did bring a pair of Ikelite DS232s. Brought the big guns for this trip, and these are great because it's the same power as the DS230s with the addition of video light for macro subjects. And I really found the video light useful when I was shooting the jellyfish. It just gave them a nice pop compared to shooting them with natural light. All right, and the no Ikelite strobe system is complete without the Ikelite TTL converter and the electrical sync cord that goes with it. Now when this thing is hooked up, it's pretty much plug and play. All your exposures are going to be bang on every single time. And the latest Ikelite housings come with a new updated hot shoe that allow you to switch between manual and TTL as you wish. So anytime that I wanted to get more creative with my lighting, I could just switch into manual and play around with that. All right, and then the last piece of kit that I brought for my main rig was just a Insta360 camera. I'll make another video in the future about how I mount this to my housing, but it's really fun to get another angle while I'm shooting stills and that I can reframe later, as well as get some BTS shots of myself diving. And then of course I brought my vacuum pump so I could put a vacuum on my housing the night before, check for any leaks, and make sure that I'm good to go in the water. And then I've got my spare parts kit. This has the Novus polish, tools, extra O-rings, lube, really anything that I would need. Can't forget a drone. This is the Mavic Air 3. And then I've got the batteries and controllers. Obviously those come with me in my carry-on. And then finally I have a kit full of chargers for my watch, my laptop, my phone, anything that I would need to charge, more cables and hard drives for backing up. All right, so that does it for the gear that I brought with me to dive in Raja Ampat, Indonesia. I know it seems like a lot, but that's kind of the game that we play as underwater photographers. If you want some more information on the Velocean liveaboard, we'll leave a link in the description below. It's an incredible trip and an even more incredible boat. If you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments down below or shoot us an email to ikelite@ikelite.com.